Barbershop 2002 was once a film bursting with laughter, energy, and the youthful spirit of Chicago's South Side. But 23 years later, the fate of its cast has taken a darker turn. Terrifying accidents, relentless illness, brutal aging, and tragedies never revealed to the public. All of it reshaped their lives in ways no one saw coming. So what really happened to them after 2 decades? The truth you're about to hear is far more shocking than you think. Ice Cube as Calvin Palmer. Ice Cube, born O'Shea Jackson Sr. on June 15, 1969, in Los Angeles, California. At 33 years old, he played Calvin Palmer in Barbershop, 2002. The struggling young barbershop owner torn between selling the shop for quick cash or preserving the legacy his father left behind. His performance grounded the film with a mix of frustration, responsibility, and hard-earned wisdom. But behind that calm exterior was a marriage that endured more turbulence than many realized. His wife, Kimberly Woodruff, supported him through the NWA breakup, the lawsuits, and the threats that followed him during the early 90s. Yet the pressure of fame, rumors of infidelity, and the challenge of raising 4 children in a city marked by violence created nights that stretched into tense silences and difficult conversations. Even at the height of his success with Straight Outta Compton and Boys in the Hood, he often returned home carrying the weight of an industry that judged him for his past and a marriage fighting to stay steady. And those pressures didn't stop at home. The stress of political activism, business ventures, and the creation of the Big Three League left him mentally drained, so much so that he once admitted the anxiety felt heavier than any diss track or film project he had ever faced. Still, he kept working, determined not to let controversy define him. Now Ice Cube is 56 years old, continuing his work as an actor, producer, and cultural figure whose influence spans generations. His estimated net worth of $160 million reflects decades of reinvention, risk, and relentless drive to protect his family while building an empire that once felt impossible. Cedric the Entertainer as Eddie Walker. Cedric the Entertainer was born on April 24, 1964, in Jefferson City, Missouri. At 38 years old, he played Eddie Walker in Barbershop, 2002, delivering the mix of comedy and heart that made him a household name. But behind the laughs was a life shaped by pressure and doubt. His marriage to Lorna Wells endured turbulence, from brutal work schedules to rumors that tested their trust. The demands of stand-up tours, filming, and promotional travel kept him away for weeks at a time, leading to arguments and reconciliations. The cancellation of Cedric the Entertainer Presents deepened the strain. He questioned his own leadership, and the weight of disappointment followed him home. Yet he pushed forward with the resilience seen in hits like Kings of Comedy, 2000. Then illness forced him to confront limits he had ignored. Myasthenia gravis weakened his facial muscles, turning simple expressions into painful effort and making performances unpredictable. There were days he could not smile, days he slurred words, days he hid backstage because medication had not kicked in. Still, he chose to keep going. Today, Cedric the Entertainer is 61 years old and continues acting, performing, and leading the neighborhood with the same warmth audiences love. Despite illness, he remains a steady figure for his 3 children and a cornerstone in modern black comedy. His estimated net worth of $25 million reflects decades of work and resilience. Carl Wright as Checkers. Fred. Carl Wright was born on February 2, 1932, in Orlando, Florida. At 70 years old, he played Checkers Fred in Barbershop, 2002, delivering humor shaped by decades on stage. That moment on screen came late, and the road leading to it was far from gentle. But behind that brief success was a marriage that had endured more strain than the public ever knew. His wife, Shirley Wright, held their household together through years of financial drought as he toured endlessly as a tap dancer. The constant travel left him guilty and exhausted. When he transitioned into acting, new frustrations emerged. Age-based rejection, shortened auditions, and the bitter knowledge that he was always chosen last. His roles in Soul Food, 1997, and Big Mama's House, 2000, gave him visibility. But at home, he wrestled with the weight of feeling late to everything. Then came the illness that changed everything. Cancer stripped him of his energy, his independence that defined his life. As the disease advanced, he leaned heavily on Shirley. The transition from dancer to patient happened faster than anyone was prepared for. Sadly, Carl Wright died on May 19, 2007, in Chicago at age 75. His final days were spent in silence, surrounded by family, far from the stages he once commanded. He left behind an estimated net worth of $1 million, earned through determination rather than privilege. Anthony Anderson as J.D. Anthony Anderson was born on August 15, 1970, in Los Angeles, California. At 32 years old, he played J.D., the reckless troublemaker whose impulsive actions, including stealing an ATM, pulled the Barbershop crew into chaos in Barbershop, 2002. His comedic energy made the character unforgettable, but it also mirrored a man wrestling with storms far deeper than what audiences saw. His marriage to Alvina Stewart, once a partnership that carried them through early poverty and career uncertainty, slowly fractured as fame intensified. The accusations of infidelity, long separations due to filming, and the emotional fallout of their strained years left deep marks on both of them, and on their two children, who watched their parents drift apart twice before the final divorce in 2017. At the same time, his career stumbled. The cancellation of All About the Andersons left him buried in debt and battling a loneliness that crept into his workdays. Then his health threatened to break him completely. Type 2 diabetes, years of obesity, and the shock of a cancer stage 0 diagnosis forced him into painful lifestyle changes. Weight loss surgery, strict diets, and constant monitoring became part of his new routine. Some days he performed through fatigue. Other days, he couldn't hide the discomfort behind a smile. Yet, he fought back. As of 2025, Anthony Anderson is 55 years old, continuing to act, host, and reinvent himself across television. His estimated net worth of $25 million stands as proof of how hard he clawed his way out of illness, debt, divorce, and public controversy. Shaun Patrick Thomas as Jimmy James. Shaun Patrick Thomas was born on December 17, 1970, in Washington, D.C. At 32 years old, he played Jimmy James, the hot-headed, idealistic barber who collided with the chaos inside Calvin's shop in Barbershop, 2002. His role brought a layered tension to the film, mirroring the inner conflict he carried in real life. Yet beneath the rising fame was a marriage tested by distance and ambition. His relationship with Ionica Laurent began with tenderness, but when he left Hollywood in 2011 to study law at the University of Virginia, the separation strained their connection. Nights apart stretched into months, and their daughter Lola felt his absence most. Even the success of Save the Last Dance and Cruel Intentions couldn't silence the pressure. The more audiences saw him as a heartthrob, the more trapped he felt. That weight slowly tightened around his mind. Depression crept in as auditions dried up, bank accounts thinned, and the dream he'd once chased now felt like a cage. The break he took for law school was meant to save him, but it also forced him to confront the years he had lost. As of 2025, Shaun Patrick Thomas is 55 years old. He has stepped back into the spotlight through roles like Polarity in Gen 5, balancing acting with his legal work and protecting the stability he fought so hard to rebuild. With an estimated net worth of $1 million, his journey reflects endurance more than glamour. Frasier as Kwame. Cliff Frasier was born on November 23, 1952 in St. Louis, Missouri. At 50 years old, he played Kwame in Barbershop, 2002, bringing a grounded strength shaped by his years on the football field. That role, small but memorable, came at a time when his life had already weathered more pain than triumph. But long before cameras, his marriage to Thelma Houston had already absorbed the toll of an athlete's unstable life. Constant team travel, sudden trades, and long periods away from home strained their relationship until emotional distance became part of their routine. After retiring from football, chronic knee pain and lingering head injuries left him frustrated and irritable, adding new weight to a marriage that was already fragile. Acting in North Dallas, 40, 1979, and House Party 1990 offered him a second chance, yet the instability of Hollywood brought new stress. Auditions missed because of pain, and roles lost because producers doubted his endurance. And as the years passed, the physical price of football finally cornered him. His body stiffened, his balance weakened, and doctors suspected long-term neurological damage from repeated hits. Treatments grew expensive, and the recovery periods longer, leaving him dependent on medication and routine hospital visits. Finally, Cliff Frasier died on August 17, 2014, in St. Louis at the age of 61, his death linked to health complications that had followed him since his playing days. He was laid to rest in his hometown, remembered by former teammates and fans who knew the warrior he once was. His estimated net worth of $1 million reflected a life spent climbing, falling, and climbing again. Keith David as Lester Wallace. Keith David was born on June 4, 1956, in Harlem, New York. At 46 years old, he played Lester Wallace in Barbershop, 2002, blending authority with the unmistakable gravity of his voice. Yet the strength seen on screen was learned through years of personal upheaval. His first marriage collapsed under the weight of long filming schedules, financial tension, and emotional distance. The divorce drained him deeply and forced him to rebuild both his home life and confidence. When he later married Dion Lee Williams, the stability was real, but fragile. Hollywood's relentless pace often pulled him away, creating moments of strain, guilt, and difficult conversations no career milestone could erase. Even with acclaimed work in The Thing, 1982, and Platoon, 1986, he struggled with the frustration of being boxed into roles that matched his voice, but not his range. And the toll wasn't only emotional. His body paid a price too. Years of physical acting left him battling chronic back pain, forcing him to limit the roles he once embraced without hesitation. Still, he kept pushing, shifting toward narration, voice acting, and characters that required presence rather than impact. Today, Keith David is 69 years old and remains active across film, television, and voice work. He continues to reinvent himself, carrying the weight of past hardships with a quiet steadiness. His net worth of about $5 million reflects a career built not on ease, but on endurance. Lamard Tate, as Billy Lamard Tate, was born on January 7, 1970, in Chicago, Illinois. At 32 years old, he played Billy, the energetic, street-smart runner who darted through Calvin's shop with quick wit, restless ambition, and the youthful swagger that added humor and rhythm to Barbershop, 2002. Though a smaller part, Billy's presence captured the pulse of South Side Chicago. But the truth was far heavier than fans ever knew. Being the middle brother between two rising stars, Lawrence and Laren, placed him in a pressure cooker of comparison. Casting directors often saw him as the other Tate, offering roles that repeated the same supporting patterns or vanished before production began. Even as his health remained steady, anxiety followed him for years. After Don't Be a Menace, 1996, the unemployment stretches grew longer, auditions grew colder, and self-doubt crept in. Yet he clung to the belief that his craft mattered. His breakthrough in Power Book II, Ghost, 2021 to 2024, proved that perseverance could outlast doubt, allowing him to finally claim a space uniquely his own. Today, Lamard Tate is 55 years old and continues acting and producing, building a career that reflects both discipline and resilience. With an estimated net worth of $1 million, he has turned the weight of family legacy into motivation rather than burden in television. Eve, as Terry Jones Eve, born Eve Jehan Jeffers Cooper on November 10, 1978, in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. At 24 years old, she played Terry Jones in Barbershop, 2002, the sharp-tongued, fiery stylist who guarded the shop with tough love, a quick temper, and a vulnerability she tried hard to hide. Her character became the emotional backbone of the barbershop's female presence, balancing humor with raw honesty. But behind Terry's fire was a woman privately carrying old wounds. Before Hollywood embraced her, Eve had already survived being dropped by Dr. Dre, a blow that pushed her into depression and a quiet struggle with mild substance dependency. And while her marriage to British entrepreneur Maximilian Cooper brought stability, it also carried cultural clashes, pushing them into a temporary separation in 2019. Therapy kept them from breaking entirely, but the process left scars, especially as she tried to raise children in two different worlds while healing the exhaustion of being a young single mother long before she was ready. And through all of this, her health paid the silent price. Stress triggered bouts of burnout that left her voiceless, sleepless, and terrified of losing the career she had fought so hard to earn. Yet she pushed forward, through albums like Let There Be Eve, Rough Riders' First Lady, and films like The Woodsman, transforming private pain into the fearless feminism that became her signature. Today, Eve is 47 years old, dividing her time between London and the US while working as a DJ on Sirius XM. Her estimated net worth of $25 million reflects not just success, but survival. Troy Garrity as Isaac Rosenberg. Troy Garrity, born Troy O'Donovan Garrity on July 7, 1973 in Los Angeles, California. At 29 years old, he played Isaac Rosenberg in Barbershop, 2002. The anxious, soft-spoken white barber trying to prove he belonged in a predominantly black barbershop. His awkward charm and sincerity turned Isaac into the film's quiet heart. But away from the gentle persona of Isaac, Troy battled a different kind of pressure, the suffocating weight of carrying the Fonda family legacy. Being the son of Jane Fonda and grandson of Henry Fonda meant every audition, every performance, every interview was followed by comparison, expectation, and scrutiny. That pressure fed years of identity conflict and social anxiety, deepening during early adulthood when he struggled to define who he was without the famous last name his parents deliberately didn't give him. Even after critical praise in A Soldier's Girl and Sunshine, he often went home feeling like he was performing under a spotlight he never asked for. Marriage brought comfort, but not without its own complications. His union with Simone Bent was steady, loving, and protected. But his filming schedules, scattered across states and continents, created long stretches of distance neither of them wanted. Their two children grew up navigating a home filled with love, but also with the unspoken tension of a father torn between career and presence. Anxiety shadowed him throughout, worsening on days when fame felt like a burden rather than a blessing. As of 2025, Troy Garrity is 52 years old and focuses on independent films and activism while raising his family with greater balance. His estimated net worth of $5 million mirrors a career built quietly, shaped not by the Fonda legacy he inherited, but by the steady resilience he forged on his own. Michael Eely as Ricky Nash. Michael Eely was born on August 3, 1973, in Silver Spring, Maryland. At 29 years old, he played Ricky Nash in Barbershop, 2002. The quiet, reformed ex-con trying to leave his criminal past behind and become a devoted father, even when the world refused to forget his record. That role mirrored battles he had already been fighting in real life. Before audiences saw Ricky trying to start over, Michael had already spent 5 years waiting tables in New York, carrying plates by day and chasing auditions by night. Casting rooms often saw only his skin color, not his range, and the steady stream of no chipped away at his confidence. When he finally began to work steadily, another struggle arrived, balancing a rising career with the fragile peace of home. His marriage to Afghan-American entrepreneur Katira Rafiqzada, which began in 2012, gave him 2 beloved children and emotional stability, but also brought the constant strain of travel, long shoots, and missed bedtimes that no award could erase. At the same time, the pressure of being a black man in Hollywood pushed him to confront something that doesn't show up on red carpets: mental health. His own brushes with anxiety and burnout made him speak out about black men seeking help, even while he quietly pushed forward with projects like Sleeper Cell and Think Like a Man. Today, Michael Eely is 52 years old, still working steadily in film and television, including The Woman in the Yard, 2025, and choosing roles that let him stretch beyond the pretty boy label he was once given. His estimated net worth of about $3 million is the result of years of rejection and quiet perseverance. Leonard Earl Howes as Dinka. Leonard Earl Howes was born on April 26, 1977, in Fayetteville, North Carolina. At 25 years old, he played Dinka in Barbershop, 2002, the lovable, optimistic African immigrant barber who wears his heart on his sleeve and quietly pines for Terry while trying to prove he belongs in the shop. His warmth and innocence made Dinka the soul of the film's comic relief. But Leonard's real journey was much harder than his character's easy smile. Before that breakout, Leonard had walked away from the security of high school sports and any normal path, choosing acting without industry connections or a safety net. The years after Antwon Fisher brought more frustration than glory. Small, repetitive roles, long stretches with no work, and the humiliation of watching bills pile up while waiting for the phone to ring. So staying physically healthy was the easy part. Learning to carry the emotional weight of always being on, always cheerful for others, was the silent burden he rarely showed. Now, Leonard Earl Howes is 48 years old, still acting and bringing life to roles in projects like Kevin Can Wait and Florida Man, 2023. His estimated net worth of about $5 million reflects not overnight fame, but a slow climb built on persistence, faith, and the decision to keep smiling even when no one saw the battle behind it. DeRay Davis as Hustle Guy. DeRay Davis was born on February 26, 1982 in Chicago, Illinois. At just 20 years old, he played Hustle Guy, the slick-talking street hustler whose wild schemes brought chaotic humor to Barbershop, 2002. The role captured the sharp, survival-driven wit he carried from his real upbringing on Chicago's South Side. It was the moment Hollywood first saw how naturally he could turn pain into punchlines. But as his on-screen confidence grew, his personal life carried wounds. Before fame, he pushed through a childhood marked by violence, instability, and brief jail time for minor offenses that left deep emotional scars. When he became a father, the pressure multiplied. He was raising a daughter largely on his own, juggling auditions, comedy clubs, and the fear that his past might shape her future. The stress often spilled into his relationships, leaving them fragile under the weight of responsibility. Career success also came with its own quiet torment. Even as he landed major films like License to Wed, 21 Jump Street, and G.I. Joe Retaliation, his PTSD trailed behind him, triggered by crowds, travel, and sudden fame. Comedy became therapy, but it was an exhausting cure. Endless touring, writing jokes through anxiety, pretending strength on days he felt empty. Yet roles in Empire, How to Act Black, and countless stand-up specials proved how fiercely he fought to rise above the darkness that shaped him. Today, DeRay Davis is 43 years old, still performing, producing, and hosting with the relentless energy that kept him alive in his earliest years. His estimated net worth of $1 million reflects a career built from grit, survival, and the determination to turn a broken past into a future his daughter could be proud of. Sonia Eddie as Janelle. Sonia Eddie was born on June 17, 1967, in Concord, California. At 35 years old, she appeared in Barbershop, 2002, as Janelle, the firm, no-nonsense presence whose grounded humor balanced the chaos around Calvin's shop. It was a small role, but she played it with the warmth and authority that later defined her entire career. Behind the scenes, her life was marked by emotional strain and the heavy solitude that often shadows character actors. Long before General Hospital turned her into a familiar face, she struggled through years of bit roles, nurse characters, day player appearances, steady work, but rarely stable pay. Relationships suffered. Partners found it difficult to accept a life defined by odd hours, sudden call times, and anonymity despite constant work. The instability of Hollywood pressed hard on her confidence, especially when finances dipped during slow seasons. Still, she pushed on, building a career brick by brick, even as health issues shadowed her steps. The stress of constant auditions, travel, and tight shooting schedules weakened her immune system, leading to recurring infections and fatigue. Yet she kept working. Coach Carter, ER, Two Broke Girls, Legit, Those Who Can't, and most famously, General Hospital. Sadly, Sonia Eddie passed away on December 19, 2022, at the age of 55, after complications from a non-emergency surgery led to a fatal infection. With an estimated net worth of $500,000, she left behind a legacy larger than any paycheck. Parveves China as Samir. Parveves China was born on July 22 in Naperville, Illinois. At 23 years old, he appeared in Barbershop, 2002, as Samir, the soft-spoken, earnest clerk whose calm presence contrasted the chaos of the barbershop. It was his very first film role, a quiet introduction to Hollywood that would later shape his entire path. But once the cameras stopped rolling, life grew far more complicated than the warmth of his on-screen personality. His journey into adulthood came with emotional weight. Long before fame, he had come out in college and struggled through the fear of disappointing family expectations, cultural traditions, and the silent pressure carried by many South Asian kids in America. Relationships were fragile under the stress of auditions, rejections, and the financial uncertainty of early acting years. Even when he found love with a script coordinator, the constant imbalance between work and intimacy forced him into moments of doubt and painful conversations that shaped his emotional resilience. As his career expanded, from outsourced to crazy ex-girlfriend and voice roles in Transformers Rescue Bots, new frustrations emerged. The stress of being both queer and South Asian in a system that still mislabeled him carved deep exhaustion, and he became an outspoken advocate for better representation. Yet through it all, he kept working, quietly building a resume that proved talent can survive even in the shadows. As of 2025, Parveves China is 47 years old, continuing to act and voice characters from his home base in Los Angeles while pushing for more honest portrayals of LGBTQ+ and South Asian identities. His estimated net worth of $1 million reflects a career built through persistence, advocacy, and the determination to carve out a place where none existed before. Some survived, some fell, and others disappeared into silence. But every story leaves a mark. Which actor's fate shocked you the most? Tell us below, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more untold Hollywood truths.